Welcome to my video channel. I am the commander. My name is Francis. The first graphic here in this response to my critics is one that points out that the initial disciples of Jesus were not scholars. So the idea that somehow Jesus is a comic book character created by local writers is really stupid. And here's proof. This is Peter before the Jewish High Council explaining why they do what they do. Now this moment takes place in the Acts of the Apostles, which is after the death of Jesus. So you can argue all day and night about reasons not to believe and somehow assure yourself that there's not enough proof that Jesus existed. The problem with those arguments is the same problem everybody has when you hear something from somebody else. Okay? You're a third party. You respond to a piece of news from somebody that you don't know, or maybe you do know. It doesn't really matter. And what you got to do is you got to make a decision whether or not you believe it. Which is why in this video, I'm going to address the fact that it doesn't matter about the number of reasons you say scientifically that God cannot exist. As an atheist, you do not believe in God is really, after all, the decision that you have made. Belief ultimately comes down to an act of the will. You base your decision on information, whether or not that comes from people you know or do not know. And in fact, in the argument here, as I'm pointing out, it doesn't really matter to these men who have said to the leaders of the people, it's up for you guys to judge whether or not this Jesus is the Son of God. And that's the argument that's best suited for a discussion about somebody who had lived 2,000 years ago. That is, as an atheist, all these silly scientific comparisons do not add up to a hill of beans when you're talking about somebody like Jesus Christ, whose ideas transcends time and space. Ideas of what man could be and what he offered in the way of miracles and proofs, and then ultimately in the sense of hope that these poor men had. And what's wrong with that? This is a problem that a lot of atheists never confront because no one ever says, what is wrong with the fact that Jesus Christ offered a hope that somehow if your life sucks in this world, it's going to be awesome in the next? But finally, I would say that you can decide on whatever you want. I don't really give a crap what you believe. Because what is believable is something that's tangible. And in the case of these men who are standing before the Jews, because in this case, right before they got pulled into the council meeting to have a face-to-face with the leaders of the Jews, they had worked a miracle. Some cripple Peter had healed in the name of Jesus. And that cripple was also before the Sanhedrin and the Jewish council in this scene. And he said, look, here's the proof, but you guys do not want to accept it. Okay? That is nothing to do with evidence. That has everything to do with the will to commit to a decision no matter what happens to counter it. No matter what evidence is provided to show you that you are wrong. As for the existence of Jesus Christ, as some people continue to say, and they're desperate to hang on to this silly idea that Jesus never existed. Like I pointed out, these men are not writers. These are not comic book creators. They have a hope and they have a person to aspire to because he walked the earth. And there's thousands, literally thousands of people in Jerusalem that heard about him because Jesus had 3 years of life. But in this scene, the council doesn't even remember these guys because they've killed Jesus, they've crucified him and gotten rid of him. And then they realize these are the guys that followed this Jesus character. So they're really choked about that because they think they've buried this lunatic, this deluded lunatic, as the atheist Hitchens said. But they haven't buried him because people still believe in him. So what do? They eventually beat these guys up and send them on their way and tell them to stop talking about Jesus. Which they don't because they can't. Because the evidence is absolutely objective to those people who were there. Which leads me to my last point about the people that criticize my approximate knowability scale. I'm sorry, fellas, that objective events can be evaluated by pluses and minuses according to who is closest to the event and what they say about it. And that's exactly what goes on anytime you're trying to discover the truthfulness of some sort of rumor. You can fight the science behind that all you want, but it's sort of disappointing that people who claim that science is their love actually deny the fact that making a grid pattern based around an objective event or scene or even a person is somehow counterproductive. That's ridiculous. Anybody who's ever worked in an investigative reporting thing, and I'm talking about anywhere from investigating car accidents for police to somebody said that he worked in the intelligence community. I've never seen anything like this. Well, of course you have. You just didn't have it under that name. It's called an SOP, Standard Operating Procedures. When something goes like this direction, this is what you do. When something goes the other direction, this is what happens. A piece of equipment cannot be operated until the manual has been checked out and you turn it on and you follow all the steps. That's all that the proximate knowability scale is. And because we're talking about Jesus Christ who lived 2,000 years ago, some atheist in his rant and his pseudo-scientific approach to saying that this man Jesus never existed is wasting your time. Because there are literally millions of people that would say, no, he does. I have experienced him firsthand in my life. So you have to now assert, as Hitchens would, that all these people that claim that Jesus Christ either spoke to them, appeared to them, affected them in their life, dating back all the way to the time of the apostles, all those people are legitimately insane. But you, Mr. Atheist or Miss Atheist, after all these years, you're the only persons that are rational, which is absolutely hilarious.
I'm laughing at the superior intellect.